Your top story: Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe has called for his cabinet for a meeting tomorrow at his State House office. This was informed by the Chief Secretary to the President. The same day, that is tomorrow, ruling party members plan to impeach him. This is the first time the ministers are set to meet for their routine weekly meeting with Mugabe since the military took power on Wednesday. Cabinet meetings are usually held at Mnangagwa, a building to the center of town, but an armored vehicle and armed soldiers are camped outside the offices. This after the deadline for Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe to step down expired at 12 noon. The embattled leader has not yet resigned. Following the expiry of the resignation deadline, ZANU-PF has initiated impeachment proceedings against Mugabe. Party Chief Whip Lovemore Matuke submitted an impeachment motion in Parliament, which will be debated tomorrow. Meanwhile, ZANU-PF members of Parliament are meeting today to discuss on the way forward.
There has to be formal processes, either his own resignation or any impeachment. So today's process does not necessarily translate to removing him from being head of state and being the president of the country. There is a legal process because he is recognized in the constitution. So what will be required is a constitutional process to terminate his presidency, which will either be a vote of no confidence in the form of an impeachment, or he himself for resigning, or a declaration in terms of the constitution that is no longer fit and capable to run the country, which is allowed in terms of the constitution.
They fired everyone, including his wife, but he was not fired, only removed him as a party leader. So we're expecting him to bid farewell to Zimbabweans last night and say, look, I've always said, if my party feels that I should step down, I will. So the expectation was to say, following the meeting of the Central Committee, I am now stepping down because my party has asked me to, and then was going to thank Zimbabweans for leading them for the last 37 years. But that was not the case.
And now joining us in studio is Marco Machona, President of the African Democrats, and he is in studio. We also have More Life Mapechure, as ZANU-PF Deputy Spokesperson, and we also have Ngaboto Mabena, Zimbabwe Communist Party General Secretary, and then we also have Tino Mabeu, a social political commentator. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me in studio.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to start with you, sir, since you are the social political analyst. Now, we did see a lot of unity standing out on Saturday when they were taking a protest, the anti-Mugabe protest. Can we be seeing the same taking place in Parliament? Will there be unity in Parliament to impeach the president?
Well, let me address that question as one person that was in Zimbabwe. I was in Zimbabwe on Saturday. I was there on Sunday. I just came back this morning. The level of unity that I have seen in Zimbabwe is beyond expected levels. It goes back to 1980. We had more than 1 million people that marched in the streets of Harare in support of Mugabe resigning. Now, that shows that Zimbabweans have put aside their political differences to now start to speak with one voice towards one common enemy. Now, as we go in tomorrow, I think we have heard from other political parties that they will support by all means necessary the impeachment that is going to come from Parliament tomorrow. So we as Zimbabweans, I can tell you the effort that has been made by the war veterans is a welcome effort, and we are going full throttle to make sure that Mugabe, at least we see his back. And we can now then build a better nation with no corruption, with no maladministration, where people have got equal opportunities and where people are appointed to work in jobs based on their merit.
And for tomorrow, in terms of the people of Zimbabwe trying to do more from the outside, should they be going to Parliament to actually try and push the MPs to actually vote together?
The MPs, the MPs and the people are in agreement. The amount of support that I have just explained is beyond imagination. So tomorrow you will see that people will be going into the streets, trying to push again. People are also saying that the war veterans are saying we are going to be marching to State House. We would have seen the statement by Chiwenga also recently, if we had the privilege to see it. He says that people must remain non-violent, and he also says that there is some kind of a deal that has been reached, which is all welcome. Everybody here is looking for the exit of Comrade Robert Mugabe. What happens after Comrade Mugabe leaves office? We would hope for a transitional authority, but that is not our immediate worry at the moment.
And I'm going to come to you, More Life. Do you think that there will be unity looking at tomorrow?
Definitely there is unity of one purpose. Zimbabwean people are fighting for one common thing, which I might not call an enemy, because Comrade Robert Mugabe, we've got great respect for him, for having participated in the liberation struggle for our country. He is still a person whom we greatly respect. But the Zimbabwean people are saying we've got one problem that we need to deal with. So there is common unity within the opposition, the ruling party, and everyone else. They are fighting towards the removing of Comrade Robert Gabriel Mugabe.
And just coming to you, sir, what do you think will be the possible scenarios that we could see take place tomorrow? As we have seen that everybody had thought that the president would have resigned, but instead he gave a long speech. What do you make of the scenarios that can be painted out tomorrow?
Thank you. Personally, I've always been cautious because from what we've seen in the past, not just yesterday, but a couple of days before that, where we've seen a dictator who is very cunning, very foxy, and very unpredictable. And I think the army have just played into his hands. They've given him a breather. And this is the space Mugabe wanted to demonstrate how cunning he is, because you can outmaneuver the process tomorrow. And it's not guaranteed that after tomorrow Mugabe will still will be out of office. And also we should bear in mind the role the army has played up to this moment. If we go back 37 years, it is the same army that has always sustained Mugabe. And removing Mugabe alone, I don't think it is satisfactory. We'll be happy, we'll celebrate when he goes, but it is the whole system that Mugabe represents. It is the mindset, the mentality of oppression, of violation of human rights that Mugabe represents in Zimbabwe. And those issues are not addressed. So we should not just look at how Mugabe leave office. We should also, as Zimbabweans, reflect the history and the pain and suffering this system, this regime has caused, the displacement of people. We have 3 to 5 million people right now, Zimbabweans, who reside outside Zimbabwe. And this is the very system. And the role the army has played over those years suddenly looks like the army is a saint. For us, we looked at it very suspiciously, because the army has not in itself shown any remorse, reforms, or they even advocated for change within ZANU-PF. The fact that ZANU-PF is failing to manage its own reforms or change or succession as a political party, they bring the whole country in disrepute. Nothing is going on in economic activities, and all of a sudden, all of us, we are now paying attention to the succession battle within ZANU-PF, and that shouldn't be all our responsibility. Zimbabwe has more than 70 political parties. The quicker ZANU-PF resolve this issue so that we go back to democratic processes, that's what we stand for as the African Democrats.
And now just coming to you, Sir Mabena, what is the ZCP party planning for tomorrow? Is there anything that we can expect from them, besides just being in Parliament, of course?
Well, we are not in Parliament, so we are playing no role tomorrow.
Okay.
But look, the events in Zimbabwe are happening so fast. The fact that the General Chiwenga says there are negotiations, and the first principle in negotiations is that to compromise you give. He spoke this evening about the roadmap, and we know we are all here because it was the military that rolled the tanks in the streets of Harare. Yes, people participated on Saturday, but the script is with the military. The general did not divulge where they are in terms of the roadmap. And I would assume that if the issues they are raising, which Mugabe was addressing or speaking to last night, are being taken into consideration and are part of that roadmap, I would not be surprised at some point the impeachment process being halted by the military. Yes, people might want it to go through. It's not a one-day event in the impeachment, but for them to commit to a roadmap, And if the military goes back to ZANU-PF and says, you are going to halt this impeachment, they will do so. Let me just demonstrate. 2 weeks ago, all ZANU-PF structures in all provinces were nominating Mugabe and Grace Mugabe as the leaders of ZANU-PF. Just this week, all the same structures who were nominating Mugabe as their leader were now saying Mugabe must go. And the question is, who is controlling the ZANU-PF structures? Is it the military? To what extent is the military involved in the structures of ZANU-PF? As the Zimbabwe Communist Party, we have been very clear. Whether this happened or it did not happen, we must recognize that our economy has collapsed. 94% unemployment. How do we resuscitate? ZANU-PF, yes, is a liberation movement. And one of the things that a liberation movement must do, must self-correct. And the question that we're posing, is this the self-correcting by ZANU-PF? The Central Committee, whether it might have been an illegal gathering or not an illegal gathering, but it made critical decisions. One of the key decisions it made is that the center of power should be removed from an individual. It must be an institution. And as such a liberation movement that begins to recognize that the center of power is the people, you then begin to say, how does then the liberation movement address the question of corruption? How does the National Liberation Movement address the question of nepotism? How does the National Liberation Movement address the question of looting? This therefore requires, in our view, that a national economic dialogue is paramount. In talking to the issues around the economy, how do we begin to organize production in the farms? How do we ensure that we stabilize or we bring stability in the banking sector? No one is banking money in Zimbabwe. People, if it is there, those that have money, they put it under the pillow. You can't run a business in such an environment.
Let me just bring in more life into this. What are your reactions to what he has mentioned?
Yes, we are very happy that the defense forces have brought in such a scenario in our country, because the unity which people have and the drive they have at the moment in time is showing that there was a kind of leading by threatening which was within our structures. But by now things being exposed and everyone is now free to really say what he or she feels. One thing which we must understand is that the Zimbabwe Defense Forces is not a ZANU-PF army. It's a national army. It's a defense forces for Zimbabwe, and whatever they are doing, they are not doing it for ZANU-PF. They are saying, ZANU-PF, organize yourselves there, and whenever things are okay, they can hand over whatever they were doing. It's not a coup. It's just an administration which they are currently running, and ZANU-PF people have spoken. And I repeat what I have said, we still respect Comrade Robert Gabriel Mugabe for whatever he has done, but it's high time the people of Zimbabwe are saying, can you rest, Mr. President, because he may not keep on presiding over the future of Zimbabwean people, which he is not going to be part of.
Let me just bring in Mr. Machona. What resolutions are you expecting from the ZANU-PF party?
First of all, I think the army at this point needs to address the public and withdraw certain statements that the army said prior to say anyone without war credentials cannot govern the country. And at this point, we need to know if the army still stand with those statements. What do we expect, to answer your question going forward? Like I said, I've always been very cautious of this army because when this whole debacle started, we saw the army putting Mr. Mugabe under house arrest. After a while, we saw the same army taking selfies, taking pictures with Robert Mugabe, cozy moments, warm-up moments. That set, the whole country in confusion. Of course, the Saturday events, the march, both in all over the world, including in Zimbabwe and also in South Africa, was for Mugabe to go. But also, we're not sure exactly whose interest the army is serving. Is it serving the interests of ZANU-PF, of the interests of the country? So what we expect as from tomorrow or Thursday is really if it's a miracle that Mugabe goes, that will be a miracle. But going forward, we are very cautious of if the army will impose another Mugabe on Zimbabwean people, because the army, like my friend Emmerson Mnangagwa said, is not very clear on the roadmap. They want us to rally behind them. Yes, we did that.
Let me hear what Tino has to say about the army. The African Democrats said that the army should have been much more firmer in dealing with the president. Do you think that this would have not caused some kind of bloodshed, most probably?
Well, to start with, the army started by putting itself in a very precarious position, which is not likable constitutionally. So I like what they have done. They've actually managed to say, Mugabe, remember, I spoke to Zuma a few days ago and said he has been confined. He is well, but he cannot make moves. And we saw him yesterday pronouncing that there has not been a coup in Zimbabwe, which is a very positive development. So what we have got to read from this is an army that wants to remain professional while influencing the political side of things. The army should never be seen to come out and say, people go and march against Mugabe, people go and do this against Mugabe, people go and vandalize, go and do whatever. That is the job of activists and political and civic organizations. So the army has managed for this particular moment to stay clear and to try and provide some sort of guidance. So they had to come back to the people and tell the people, where are we now, where are we going? And we really appreciate that. But going forward, we are looking tomorrow at the impeachment process, which we hopefully say that should be a success. And we are saying, while we are in the midst of all these things, the powers that be it Mnangagwa or whoever that is within the political circus right now, they should understand that the youth have been deprived of chances for a very long time. We were born into 6 years, I was born 6 years into independence, and the better part of my life I have known misgovernance, corruption, and all sorts of things happening. So we are saying to them, we have marched with you to make sure that Mugabe goes with the sole aim of bringing sanity back to our country. So in a country that has got sanity, we wish to see everybody enjoying the fact that they are Zimbabwean and non-Zimbabweans. We wish to see investment coming back to the country. And that is what we are saying to everybody. And if the army will turn again next time and say, no, people cannot march, then we'll have to suspect them. But for now, I think they've also learned from their previous mistakes. And they've seen that they need people for them to be a professional army. And what we have seen, we have never had time to, you could not take a selfie with an army in Zimbabwe. That has never been seen. That was never heard of. But over the weekend and right up to now, their army is waving at people and we are speaking with one voice. And we wanted to urge, there are certain elements within ZANU-PF that think this thing is about them. It's not about them. It's about Zimbabwe. How do we come in? Because ZANU-PF is the one that determines whether I do have bread tomorrow, I do not have bread tomorrow. So this is not a ZANU-PF issue. It's a national issue. That is why Zimbabweans in their numbers went out and said Mugabe must go. Then we can have a fair level playing field in terms of elections, then we can also have a say in our politics. But we cannot relegate this, as Chinamasa Patrick was saying yesterday, that this is a ZANU-PF matter. It's not a ZANU-PF matter. This is a Zimbabwean matter and also a South African matter, in the sense that the decisions that are made in South Africa, in ZANU-PF, if you have got an effect on South Africa, you have got an effect on the world at large. So that is why you see Zimbabweans speaking with one voice. And we continue to support the war veterans. And we continue to support their effort to make sure that Zimbabweans are united this time around. And we need to see that spirit of unity going forward. And we also say to those pseudo-analysts, we have got paralysis in their analysis. The analysis that they are making, that the army is using people and all that, it's divisive. We do not want to be divided at this moment in time.
Now, looking at how the matter is being solved, we know that according to reports, Zimbabwe's war veterans are turning to the courts in their bid to oust Mugabe as the country's president. And what do you make of this move? Because we also know that ZANU-PF has set the impeachment ball rolling, of course.
Right. What we are doing here, we have always said that we do not want to place Mugabe under coup. We don't want a coup in Zimbabwe. We are trying as much as possible to find all avenues that are available within the constitution. So be it impeachment, be it going to court, all those avenues are going to be explored because the sole reason is to get Mugabe out. And if everything comes to a head, I'm telling you that people are going to go back to the streets and that people are already mobilizing. In fact, people are in the streets. They are saying, if this man can continue like this, then he's going to have problems on his side. And what we do not want, and you know, we are reaching a level where our patience is running out, and we do not want to ask for his head when he's taken in another way, maybe by impeachment or forcibly. So if he does not do it amicably in a proper way, then unfortunately the statesmanship that my friend is talking about, we might have to forget about it and ask for his own head and the head of the other people around him. They would have to be punished for it.
I'm going to come to you and ask if these matters are not resolved, obviously, through the courts or impeachment, will people be going back to the streets, of course?
Well, firstly, let's address this question, because I think the Comrade President here and my brother Tino, they seem to be missing the point. The army went in to save a faction which was defeated politically. Their target was never President Robert Mugabe from the word go. They went there to deal with the counter-revolutionaries in their ways, because they said they are dealing with the thieves around President Mugabe, not President Mugabe himself. The Central Committee yesterday asserted that view. They expelled everyone that they thought was a counter-revolutionary, and they left President Mugabe as a member of ZANU-PF, though of course they even removed him as the leader of the party. That tells you that, and the statement they issued in the Central Committee is that they took advantage of his old age. So it is clear. The failure, as was earlier saying, the failure to resolve the succession question in ZANU-PF, it gave rise to two contending factions within ZANU-PF. Team La Costa, which has the support of the military, and the G4, which has always had support of the ZANU intellectuals, and the Youth League, Women's League. The military has come in, they've crushed the Youth League, they've crushed the Women's League. Now they are crushing everything in ZANU-PF, and they are now in control. Now that they are in control, they are saying, we now have a roadmap. Chinamasa then comes yesterday, says, this is an internal ZANU-PF matter, it does not need the opposition. They are very now clear where they want to go. So this is why, as the Zimbabwe Communist Party, we are saying, is this the reformation of ZANU-PF? Is it the liberation movement self-correcting? And if it is self-correcting, we need therefore to begin to say, how did we find ourselves in this economic crisis? First 10 years of our independence, we had what we called central planning. 1991, we adopted neoliberal policies. And we are saying, as the Zimbabwe Communist Party, let us go back to central planning. This is the only way, in our view, that will kickstart the engines of our economy. Our mining, our agriculture, we need an environment where tourists will come and visit. We have so many tourist sites in Zimbabwe. This is what we must be focusing on. Hence, we are calling for an economic love.
All right, and your closing remarks, sir, before I go.
Thank you very much. I think we need to be, like I said, always watchful of the army. They're not very clear as to what the future is all about. Words like democracy, rule of law, words like free and fair election, credible election, those are not part of the army's vocabulary, and we need to be very worrisome of that. And also the way they are protecting not just Mugabe, but a possible successor to Mugabe, Mnangagwa himself. They are not really mentioning where he is. And also we've been seeing reports that he's back in the country. They also never been very clear when he left the country, where he was. And also that's very suspicious. Yes, if Mugabe goes by Thursday, we'll celebrate, but we need also to look exactly where we're going as a country. Are we going back to democratic processes? Are we going to have free, fair, and credible elections? And that's a big question, because if we don't, the same army will manage another Mugabe for the next 35 years, and that will be a sorry state of affairs.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming through and giving us more insight on this story.